Hare Krishna devotees, and a warm welcome to day 87 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, and today we are beginning Chapter 30 of the 4th canto, which is titled The Activities of the Prachetas. Right, day 87. So let's have a look here and see what we're dealing with. First of all, our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyatyadi Jatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchkalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha, Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Right, okay, so here we go, devotees. So here in this 30th chapter of the 4th canto, the activities of the Prachetas, we have 51 verses, and we have divided them up into 10 sections as follows. First section is verse 1 and verse 2. What did the Prachetas achieve by chanting Lord Shiva's song? Second section, verse 3 to verse 12. Maitreya explains that the Lord appeared to them, means the Prachetas. Third section, verse 13 to verse 16. Story of the daughter of Canto and Pramlocha. Fourth section, verse 17 to verse 20. The Lord blesses the Prachetas. Fifth section, verse 21 to verse 42. That's a pretty big section. The Prachetas offer prayers to the Lord. Sixth section, verse 43, the Lord departs. The seventh section, verse 44 to verse 45, the Prachetas become angry at the trees. Sounds interesting. Gosh. Eighth section, verse 46. Lord Brahma pacifies the Prachetas. Then ninth section, just verse 47. The trees offer their daughter to the Prachetas. 10th section, verse 48 to verse 51. Daksha becomes the son of the Prachetas. Wow, all sorts of interesting subject matters there. So, right, first of all, let's get into the first section, verses 1 and 2. What did the Prachetas achieve by chanting Lord Shiva's song? Let's just read the verses first of all, verse 1 and verse 2. Verse 1, Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O Brahman, you formerly spoke about the sons of Prachanabarhi and informed me that they satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting a song composed by Lord Shiva. What did they achieve in this way? Okay, and verse 2. My dear Barhaspatya, what did the sons of King Barhishat, known as the Prachetas, obtain after meeting Lord Shiva, who is very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bestower of liberation? Certainly they were transferred to the spiritual world, but apart from that, what did they obtain within this material world, either in this life or in other lives? Okay, let's go through again with the purports. Verse 1, Vidura inquired from Maitreya, O Brahman, you formerly spoke about the sons of Prachinabarhi and informed me that they satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting a song composed by Lord Shiva. What did they achieve in this way? Right, so previously, Maitreya Rishi told the story of the Prachetas, the sons of Prachinabarhishat. They went to a lake, a great lake, which was like an ocean, and there they found Lord Shiva, and he taught them his song to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then from that point, Narada Muni instructed Prachinabarhi in the story of Puranjan, because Narada definitely didn't approve of Prachinabarhishat's, that's the father of the Pracheta, of his attachment for fruitive activities. So therefore Narada instructed Prachinabarhi through telling that allegorical story of Puranjan. So now Vidura again wants to hear about the Prachetas, the sons of Prachinabarhi. Yes, and he was particularly interested to find out what they achieved by satisfying the Lord by chanting that song. So Srila Prabhupada points out the words siddhim apu, or achieved perfection. They're very important. So what perfection did they achieve? And Prabhupada points out how in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 3, Lord Krishna says how rare it is that a person becomes fully Krishna conscious. Yeah, that Bhagavad Gita 7.3 is quite a famous verse. Manusyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Out of many, many millions of people, one may be interested to learn about becoming successful in spiritual life. So that success in spiritual life is, as Prabhupada quotes from Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, verse 15, Mam upecha punarjanma dukalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsidim paramam gata. Translation of which is, after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries, because they've attained the highest perfection. And Prabhupada points out, highest perfection, what is it? It's to go back to Godhead, never come back to this material world. So avoid transmigrating completely. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, by the grace of Lord Shiva, the Prachetas actually attained perfection and returned home back to Godhead after enjoying material facilities to the highest extent. Maitreya will now narrate that to Vidura. And verse 2, my dear Barhaspatya, what did the sons of King Barhishat, known as the Prachetas, obtain after meeting Lord Shiva, who's very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the bestower of liberation? Certainly they were transferred to the spiritual world, but apart from that, what did they obtain within this material world, either in this life or in other lives? Okay, so there's a couple of paragraphs here. First paragraph, Prabhupada raises the point that all types of material happiness are obtained in this life or the next life, on this planet or some other planet. Living entities basically just wandering around within the material universe, different species, different planets. So Prabhupada points out that the distress and happiness obtained during the span of life here are called iha, and that obtained in the next life, distress and happiness obtained in the next life, are called paratra. And second paragraph, Lord Shiva is one of the great demigods in this material world, and generally his blessings, for ordinary people, what those blessings mean is material happiness, because Durga, the predominating deity of the material world, is his wife, and she is under his control. So therefore Lord Shiva can offer any type of material blessing. Therefore people who are materialists generally prefer to become his devotees or followers. So what about in this case though? So Shiva then instructed them to chant his prayer to the Supreme Lord, and simply by doing this they went back to the spiritual world. And it happens. Sometimes a devotee gets placed on a material planet and transferred to a heavenly planet, or although the devotee never aspires for this, or generally, sometimes devotees desire to enjoy material happiness, and then they're given a chance to enjoy in this world before entering the spiritual world. Prabhupada actually said that about Jayananda Prabhu, that he may have just gone straight back to Godhead, or maybe he went to some heavenly planet to enjoy for a while, and then went back to Godhead. But anyway, the thing is, a pure devotee never aspires for material happiness at all. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the pure devotee is consequently transferred directly to Vaikuntha Loka, which is described here as Param. In this verse, Vidura asks Maitreya, the disciple of Brihaspati, about the different achievements of the Prachetas. So on we go, devotees, to the second section, verse 3 to verse 12, and the subject matter is, Maitreya explains that the Lord appeared to them, to the Prachetas. Verse 3 to verse 12, let's just read through the verses first of all. Verse 3, The great sage Maitreya said, the sons of King Prachinabarhi, known as the Prachetas, underwent severe austerities within the sea water to carry out the order of their father. By chanting and repeating the mantras given by Lord Shiva, they were able to satisfy Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse 4. At the end of 10,000 years of severe austerities performed by the Prachetas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to reward their austerities, appeared before them in his very pleasing form. This appealed to the Prachetas and satisfied the labor of their austerities. Verse 5. Personality of Godhead appearing on the shoulder of Garuda seemed like a cloud resting on the summit of the mountain known as Meru. The transcendental body of the personality of Godhead was covered by attractive yellow garments, and his neck was decorated with the jewel known as Kaustuba Mani. The bodily effulgence of the Lord dissipated all the darkness of the universe. Verse 6. The Lord's face was very beautiful, and his head was decorated with a shining helmet and golden ornaments. The helmet was dazzling and was very beautifully situated on his head. The Lord had 8 arms, each which held a particular weapon. The Lord was surrounded by demigods, great sages, and other associates. These were all engaged in his service. Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, glorified the Lord with Vedic hymns by flapping his wings. Garuda appeared to be an inhabitant of the planet known as Kinnara Loka. Verse 7. Around the neck of the personality of Godhead hung a flower garland that reached to his knees. His eight stout and elongated arms were decorated with that garland, which challenged the beauty of the goddess of fortune. With a merciful glance and a voice like thunder, the Lord addressed the sons of King Prachinabarhishat, who were very much surrendered unto him. Verse 8. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear sons of the King, I'm very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me. 9. The Lord continued, those who remember you every evening of every day will become friendly with their brothers and with all other living entities. Verse 10. Those who will offer me the prayers composed by Lord Shiva, both in the morning and in the evening, will be given benedictions by me. In this way they can both fulfill their desires and attain good intelligence. Verse 11. Because you have with pleasure accepted within your hearts the orders of your Father, and have executed those orders very faithfully, your attractive qualities will be celebrated all over the world. Verse 12. You will have a nice son who will be in no way inferior to Lord Brahma. Consequently, he'll be very famous all over the universe, and the sons and grandsons generated by him will fill the 3 worlds. Right, okay, devotees, so here we go. Second section, verse 3 to verse 12. Maitreya explains that the Lord appeared to them. Verse 3, the great sage Maitreya said, the sons of King Prachinabarhi, known as the Prachetas, underwent severe austerities within the sea water to carry out the order of their father. By chanting and repeating the mantras given by Lord Shiva, they were able to satisfy Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, okay, there's a reasonably substantial purport here. Prabhupada makes the point that we can, of course, offer our own prayers. Yeah, we can compose prayers of our own, and that's nice. But Prabhupada says if we repeat the prayers of great devotees like Shiva and Brahma, or if we follow in the footsteps of great devotees, then we can please the Lord very easily. Yeah, okay. And Prabhupada says sometimes we chant this prayer from Brahma Samhita, verse 29. You all know this verse. Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu surabhir abhipalayantam lakshmi sahasra shata sambrahma sevyamanam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. And this is the translation. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He's always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. So because this prayer was offered by Lord Brahma, we follow him by reciting it. That's the easiest way to satisfy the Lord, because the pure devotee never tries to reach the Lord directly, only by going through the disciplic succession of devotees. So therefore, Lord Shiva's prayers were repeated by the Prachetas, and in this way they were able to satisfy, to please the Lord. Paragraph 2. So Prabhupada makes the point that here the Lord is described. The Lord is described as Puranjan. Yeah, Prabhupada mentions Madhvacharya, says that the living entity is called Puranjan, means ancient person, because he's become an inhabitant of the material world, and he's forced to live here under the modes. So that the Lord creates the material world, then enters it. Brahma Samhita verse 35 describes this. And antarasta paramanu chayantarastam. It's an important verse, that the Lord enters into the heart of the living entity, but also within the atom. So therefore, both the living entity and the Lord can be called, and sometimes are called, Puranjan. But one Puranjan is subordinate to the Supreme Puranjan. That's devotional service. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, that is devotional service. Lord Rudra or Lord Shiva is the original Acharya of the Vaishnava Sampradaya, called the Rudra Sampradaya. Rudra Gitena indicates that under the disciplic succession of Lord Rudra, the Parechas achieved spiritual success. Verse 4. at the end of 10,000 years of severe austerities performed by the Prachettas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to reward their austerities, appeared before them in his very pleasing form. This appealed to the Prachettas and satisfied the labor of their austerities. So, Prabhupada raises the point at the beginning that performing 10,000 years of severe austerities doesn't sound like a very happy program. Yeah. But the thing is, the devotees, serious devotees, they undergo such austerities in order to get the favor of the Lord. Prabhupada refers to Valmiki. He underwent meditational austerities for 60,000 years. So the Lord appreciated the austerities and penances of the Prachettas, and therefore he appeared before them. So of course when they saw him, they all became very satisfied. They forgot about the austerities and penances. In the material world, if someone is successful after hard labor, he is pleased. So, yeah. So similarly, if a devotee forgets his labors as soon as he contacts the Lord. Prabhupada gives the example of Dhruva, only 5 years old, and he did his austerities and penances, and after 6 months, he saw the Lord, then forgot all about his austerities, and seeing the Lord, he said, Swamin kritartosmi, my dear Lord, I'm very pleased. Right, so we go on, devotees, to the second paragraph. So these austerities, of course, were performed in Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Treta Yuga, but not in Kali Yuga. Yeah. In Kali Yuga, if you do Sankirtan of the holy names, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, you get the same result. So that's the mercy of the Lord, because the people of this age are so fallen. And the Lord is kind enough to give them the easiest method. Just chant. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, however, as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out, we are so unfortunate that we're not even attracted to chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Verse 5. The personality of Godhead appearing on the shoulder of Garuda seemed like a cloud resting on the summit of the mountain known as Meru, the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead, was covered by attractive yellow garments, and his neck was decorated with the jewel known as Kaustubha Mani. The bodily effulgence of the Lord dissipated all the darkness of the universe. So, okay, there's purport here. Prabhupada first of all quotes Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 22:31, famous verse, Krishna Surya Sama Mayahaya Andaka, Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayara Adika, which means the Lord is just like the effulgent sun. So therefore, whenever he's present, there cannot be any darkness or ignorance. Actually, when Prabhupada goes on, actually the universe is dark, but because of the presence of the sun, everything's illuminated. If there was no sun, we would just be in total extreme darkness. And Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, verse 8, where Lord Krishna says, Prabhasmi Shashi Suryayo, I'm the illuminating energy of both the sun and the moon. Prabhupada makes the point that the conclusion is that the origin of life is the bodily effulgence of the Lord, which is confirmed in Brahma Samhita verse 40, Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagad Andakoti, which means being illuminated by the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything is freed from all darkness. Verse 6, the Lord's face was very beautiful, and his head was decorated with a shining helmet and golden ornaments. The helmet was dazzling and was very beautifully situated on his head. The Lord had 8 arms, which each held a particular weapon. The Lord was surrounded by demigods, great sages and other associates, and these were all engaged in the Lord's service. Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, glorified the Lord with Vedic hymns by flapping his wings. And Prabhupada makes the point, Garuda appeared to be an inhabitant of the planet known as Kinnara Loka. So let's have a look at the purport here. It's a little extensive. So Prabhupada describes the Vishnu form of the Lord. He has 4 arms with 4 objects, conch shell, disc club, and lotus. But here he's described as having 8 arms with 8 kinds of weapons. And Prabhupada refers to Viraraghava Acharya, who says that the conch and lotus are also weapons. He's the supreme controller, so whatever's in his hands can be considered a weapon. So there are 8 hands with 8 weapons. The other 4 are an arrow, a bow, a trident, and a snake. Okay, let's carry on, devotees, with the second paragraph of the purport. Prabhupada makes the point that as a king is always accompanied by associates, so the Lord is also. Therefore we can understand he's not impersonal. He's never alone. He's never impersonal. So Garuda, yes, appears to be from Kinnara Loka. The inhabitants there have the same features as Garuda. Yeah. Their bodily features are like those of a human being, but they have wings. And they're usually depicted as having beaks and, sort of bird-like features. So there's a little purport here that the word Gita Kirti means they're expert in singing the glories of the Lord. Then Srila Prabhupada refers to the famous verse, Jagadanda Koti Kotish Vishesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Binam. In each and every universe there are different types of planets, and each planet has distinctive features. So on another planet, well, there's a planet. Well, first of all, Prabhupada explains about Kinnara Loka. On the strength of this verse, we can understand that in Kinnara Loka, the inhabitants can fly with their wings. but there's also a planet known as Siddhaloka, where they fly without wings. So thus each and every planet has some distinctive facility. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus each and every planet has some distinctive facility. That is the beauty of the varied creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse 7, around the neck of the Personality of Godhead hung a flower garland that reached to his knees. His eight stout and elongated arms were decorated with that garland, which challenged the beauty of the goddess of fortune. With a merciful glance and a voice like thunder, the Lord addressed the sons of King Prachina Barhishat, who were very much surrendered unto him. Okay, let's have a look at the purport here. Prabhupada points out that the word Adya is significant. Let's have a look here. Adya. It basically means he's the origin. He is the original origin. Let's have a look. Adya, yeah. He's the original personality of Godhead. So the Lord is the origin even of Paramatma and Brahman. Bhagavad Gita chapter 14 verse 27 confirms this. So therefore the absolute truth begins not with Brahman, but with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when Arjuna understood this, then he addressed Krishna as follows: Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramambhavam, Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, Adi Devam Ajam Vibhum. Which means you are the Supreme Brahman, the ultimate, the supreme abode and purifier, the absolute truth and the eternal divine person. You are the primal God, transcendental and original. And you are the unborn and all-pervading beauty. This is Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 verse 12. Then there's a second paragraph. Prabhupada refers to the Brahma Samhita, the first verse, Anadya Adya Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, that the Supreme Lord is not caused by anything. He's Anadi, but he is the cause of all causes. So Vedanta Sutra says, Janmadyasya Yataha, first verse. The absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. So the absolute truth is therefore a person and is not impersonal. Verse 8. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear sons of the King, I'm very much pleased by the friendly relationships among you. All of you are engaged in one occupation, devotional service. I'm so pleased with your mutual friendship that I wish you all good fortune. Now you may ask a benediction of me. Right. So this is quite a sort of famous verse, actually, that because the Prachetas are so nicely engaged in cooperation in Krishna consciousness, then the Lord became very, very pleased by this. So he offers them a benediction. So of course, well, Prabhupada makes the point that on the material level, such unity is not possible. People may officially unite, but they have different interests. For example, the United Nations, each nation has particular national ambitions. And indeed, in this world, disunity is so strong that even sometimes in the Krishna consciousness society, the members appear disunited due to there being different opinions about Krishna consciousness and leaning towards material things. So, but actually, where there's Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada makes the important point that there cannot be two opinions. There's only one goal, and that is to serve Krishna to the best of one's ability. And if there's some disagreement over service, it should be taken as spiritual. So therefore, those who are actually engaged, nicely engaged in devotional service, they cannot be disunited. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, this makes the Supreme Personality of Godhead very happy and willing to award all kinds of benediction to his devotees, as indicated in this verse. We can see that the Lord is immediately prepared to award all benedictions to the sons of King Prachina Barhishat. Verse 9. The Lord continued, those who remember you every evening of every day will become friendly with their brothers and with all other living entities. So there's no purport to verse 9. We just go on to verse 10. Those who will offer me the prayers composed by Lord Shiva, both in the morning and in the evening, will be given benedictions by me. In this way, they can both fulfill their desires and attain good intelligence. Right, so Srila Prabhupada makes the point that good intelligence, what's good intelligence? Good intelligence means to go back home, back to Godhead. Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 verse 10 confirms that. Tesham sadhati yuktanam bhajatam priti puravakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupiyanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So, Prabhupada makes the point that if one offers prayers to the Lord to fulfill one's own desires, then one should know that the highest perfection or fulfillment of desire is to go back to Godhead. So here it said, if we remember the activities of the Prachetas, we'll be blessed and we'll be delivered. So what to speak of the Prachetas themselves? What happened to them certainly was very glorious. So anyway, that's parampara. If we follow our acharyas, we get the same benefit as our predecessors. If we follow the decision of Arjuna, we'll be directly hearing Bhagavad Gita from Lord Krishna. There will be no difference. Prabhupada makes the point that sometimes fools say that since Krishna's not here, we can't take instructions from him. But there's no difference reading the Bhagavad Gita book or hearing from him directly. There's no difference, same. But if you want to understand Bhagavad Gita by approaching mental speculators, then you can't expect to understand its mysteries, even though you may be some sort of great scholar. Verse 11. Because you have with pleasure accepted within your hearts the orders of your Father, and have executed those orders very faithfully, your attractive qualities will be celebrated all over the world. Right, there's a purport here. Let's have a look. So Prabhupada makes, first of all, the fundamental point that seeing we're parts and parcels of the Lord, we have minute independence. Sometimes people who are not intelligent ask why we're put into misery. But the thing is, well, why is one put into misery even though everyone's under the control of the Lord? So the thing is that with our independence, we can follow the Lord's orders or not follow them. If we follow, we'll be happy. And if we don't follow, we'll be unhappy. So in this way, we create our own happiness and unhappiness, because the Lord does not force these things on anyone. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the Supreme Lord praised the Prachetas because they all faithfully obeyed the orders of their of their father. The Lord therefore blessed the sons of King Prachinabarhishat because they obeyed their father's orders. Verse 12. You will have a nice son who will be in no way inferior to Lord Brahma. Consequently, he'll be very famous all over the universe, and the sons and grandsons generated by him will fill the three worlds. So Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, as explained in the next verse, the Prachetas will marry the daughter of the great sage Canto, and his name will be Vishruta, and he will glorify his parents because of his good character, and he'll even be greater than Lord Brahma. Prabhupada refers to Chanakya, Pandit, materialistic philosopher, politician. Says, if there's a good tree in the forest, its flowers will fill the forest with fragrance. And so similarly, a good son makes the whole family famous all over the world. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Krishna took birth in the family of the Yadus, and consequently the Yadu dynasty is famous all over the world. So let's see, yes, let's just go on. Third section from verse 13 to verse 16 is titled Story of the Daughter of Canto and Pramlocha. Well, we have to read the verses first. So verse 13. O sons of King Prachinabarhishat, the heavenly society girl named Pramlocha kept the lotus-eyed daughter of Canto in the care of the forest trees. Then she went back to the heavenly planet. This daughter was born by the coupling of the Apsara named Pramlocha with the sage Canto. Right, let's go on to verse 14. Thereafter the child who was left to the care of the trees began to cry in hunger. At that time the king of the forest, namely the king of the moon planet, out of compassion placed his finger, which poured forth nectar, within the child's mouth. Thus the child was raised by the mercy of the king of the moon. Since all of you are very much obedient to my orders, I ask you to immediately marry that girl who is so well qualified with beauty and good qualities. According to the order of your father, create progeny through her. Verse 16. You brothers, are all of the same nature, being devotees and obedient sons of your father. Similarly, that girl is also of the same type and is dedicated to all of you. Thus both the girl and you, the sons of Prachinabarishat, are on the same altar, being united on a common principle. Okay, so let's go through again. 13 to 16. Story of the daughter of Canto and Pramlocha. Read the verse again. O sons of King Prachinabarishat, the heavenly society girl named Pramlocha kept the lotus-eyed daughter of Canto in the care of the forest trees. Then she went back to the heavenly planet. This daughter was born by the coupling of the Apsara named Pramlocha with the sage Canto. So let's have a look at the purport. So the thing, of course, is that whenever great sages do austerities and penances for material power, Indra becomes envious. Even though the demigods are great, they still may become envious. Just like businessmen, a businessman is afraid of his associates competing. And everyone here in the material world is here to compete with the Lord for his opulence. So therefore Indra was afraid of the severe austerities of the great sage Canto and sent Pramlocha to break his vows. And of course, Prabhupada mentions, and it's a very famous story, same sort of thing happened with Vishvamitra. So it seems Indra has always been envious, stole the horse of Prithu Maharaj. So Indra broke the vow of Canto, and with Pramlocha he begot a beautiful female child. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, being thus successful in her mission, Pramlocha returned to the heavenly planets, leaving the newborn child to the care of the trees. Fortunately, the trees accepted the girl and agreed to raise her. 14. Thereafter, the child who was left to the care of the trees began to cry in hunger. At that time, the king of the forest, namely the king of the moon planet, out of compassion placed his finger, which poured forth nectar within the child's mouth. Thus the child was raised by the mercy of the king of the moon. And there's just a very short purport here. Let me just read it. Although the Apsara left her child to the care of the trees could not take care of the child properly. Therefore the trees handed the child over to the king of the moon. Thus Chandra, king of the moon, put his finger within the mouth of the child to satisfy her hunger. Verse 15, since all of you are very much obedient to my orders, I ask you to immediately marry that girl who is so well qualified with beauty and good qualities. According to the order of your father, create progeny through her. And again, there's very short purport. Prabhupada says, the Prachetas not only were great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but were very obedient to the orders of their father. Therefore the Lord asked them to marry the daughter of Pramlocha. Verse 16. You brothers are all of the same nature, being devotees and obedient sons of your father. Similarly, that girl is also of the same type and is dedicated to all of you. Thus both the girl and you, the sons of Prachinabarishat, are on the same platform, being united on a common principle. So Prabhupada makes interesting point. According to Vedic principles, a woman cannot have many husbands, although a man can have many wives. That's there. Draupadi, of course, was the famous exception. So the same thing here. One woman, many husbands. So the woman, to be qualified, she has to be able to treat her husbands equally, which is not possible for an ordinary woman. So really only one who's especially qualified can be allowed to marry more than one husband. And in Kali Yuga, to find such a woman is very, very difficult. So therefore Shastra says, Kalo pancha vivarjayat. A woman is forbidden to have a child by her husband's brother, because otherwise she'll become attached to him. Prabhupada says it still happens in some places in India. So the Lord blessed her to surrender equally to all the brothers. Yeah. Apritag dharma, occupational duty without difference of purpose. And we go on to the second paragraph. Apritag dharma means to act according to your occupational duty, just to satisfy the Yajna Purusha, the Supreme Lord. And just like different limbs of the body may act differently, but the ultimate aim is to maintain the body. So similarly, if we work to satisfy the Lord, everyone will be satisfied. So we should follow in the footsteps of the Prachetas, whose only aim was to satisfy the Lord. That is apritag dharma. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, according to Bhagavad Gita 1866, Sarvadhamam parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja, abandon all varieties of religion, just surrender unto me. This is Lord Krishna's advice. Our only aim should be acting Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the Lord. This is oneness, or apritag dharma. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.